Good morning, our second morning, Wednesday morning group video. And today I'm continuing with the idea of the self, which was the last one we did. That is on YouTube. So today I want to talk about my pilgrimage. I want to try to encourage you to do your pilgrimage, to do some work for yourself and create a written piece of work that you can refer to and organize some of your thoughts. So my pilgrimage, it can be a spiritual journey, it can be a growth journey, it can be a lifelong journey, it can be all of the above. Guess what? Mine's all of the above. I want to talk about that I do have an agenda today. Every time I do a video, I have an agenda. I'm not picking out two sides of any story. I'm picking out the side I like. I want to be very clear about that. All therapists are prejudicial in some respect. Whether they talk, they say nothing, and they let you have all the comments. They have to keep their body language totally quiet. It's unlikely that we don't show prejudice ourselves. So my agenda this morning, encourage you to author your own journey. What meaning can you derive from looking back, reflecting back on your history and on your future memories, plans that you have, things that you want to do? How I've organized mine, I'm going to talk about a little bit without writing it all at once. I'm not suggesting you sit down and write the whole thing. And you are the only authority of your life, no one else. No one else can tell you how you think or feel. And by the way, that autobiographical self can go back in and can change the words. I think I mentioned that last time. You as the only authority, what profit can you have by doing this? Well, I don't know. Why don't you give it a shot? See whether or not, if you just wrote something, if you could learn something from that writing. I am for sure a time traveler. I live in the present, in the here and now for sure. I operate in the present. I create for the future, obviously. I have to work on these. It takes me at least 10 minutes to put something out here for you. I travel back and forth every day in other people's lives. And of course, they're not bringing the now in here. They're bringing the yesterday in here. Remember, our lives are lived forward, but they're understood backwards. Does that make sense? Our lives are lived forward, but the reflection is backwards. So I also visit my own memories in the future. What I'd like to see happen in the next possible years. To me, there's only two positions, living or dead. I've never believed in the word dying. There is no such thing as dying. Because if we're going to go there, we need to go that we start dying from the time we're almost born. So I'm suggesting that it's never too late to decide that you want to do something and you decide you're going to tackle it. My memories, they're all stored in rooms along my imaginary hallway. So in my mind, I have this hallway of doors. I call it sometimes I call it a lot of things, but I call it in a sense that I'm going to travel down this hallway, open up various doors, and it is absolutely positively doors are shut and locked, doors that are wide open, and different doors I spend less time in. I can go in the door and add something, I can go in the door and take something, I can go in the door and retrieve a memory. But I don't swing all the doors open. It's called compartmentalization. It's a good way, if you're working on something, to put things behind you, behind the doors, and not open all of them and flood yourself all at one time. I call it my gauntlet. A gauntlet is a challenge. I call it my gauntlet that when I go down that hallway, I have a decision to make. I can decide where I'm going to travel and what door I'm going to open. And sometimes I'm very surprised that I've worked through something and it no longer has, it has the history, but it's not holding the emotion. So I have various names on those doors. Some I haven't opened in a long time. some never to be accessed again. And I could draw all of them in my mind in a minute because I've been working with this for a long time on my own. Did I read about this somewhere? No. It was something I created for myself. But the door containing lost loves, the door containing losses, period, is a revolving door. That door I travel in my sessions. I travel in it for myself. I have healed my own losses. I went through a lot of pain, torture, work. All of that's available to me. I don't feel it, but I remember it. But I want to have access to that. My tapestry that sits here on my life has threads that are not so fun to remember, threads that are absolutely incredible, and threads that I have pulled out when I had losses and put back in when I healed them. Because that tapestry, you can't pull all the bad threads. You've got to be able to use those threads because they help to make that tapestry, and new things come because we have opened our minds and our hearts up to new learning and new people and new loves. So it's important, to me anyway, to be able to have a record. I'm a writer. I am a writer for myself. I'm a person that writes poetry all the time. I like doing stuff that involves writing. I happen to think it's helpful. So that's one door that I have, absolutely a revolving door. It's always open for me because I need it. I need to go in there and get the wisdom from it. By the way, mostly wisdom comes from suffering. Very rarely are you ever going to have any wisdom without you've suffered. My journey with losses, the revolving door, the relationships, and how I remember. But it's tucked away, but it has current relevancy. That's why I access it. Some things you don't need to remember. Some things you don't want to remember, but I guarantee you the more you remember, the easier it is to let go of it. It's not the memories that are so painful, it's the silence and secrets that absolutely work on us unconsciously. I want to talk about how sad and empty the spaces can be if we don't know that we have them. We can't understand how our immunity system, how we don't feel good, how we have a lot of illnesses, how we run to doctors all the time, how we have autoimmune diseases. A lot of times those are secrets, things that we don't even want to tell ourselves. I'm not saying that the cause is the stress, but the stress feeds the autoimmune. It feeds it. So the memories that I have worked so hard to access, I have switched them on and off with the grief and the sorrow. I've worked through the grief and sorrow and been able to take them and put them behind one of those doors and pull out all those memories, because although they're bittersweet, I can now access them. In the beginning, I can't access them at all. The memories are much too painful, and I've had a lot of losses. And I'm not proud of that. I didn't ask for them. I didn't want to do the labs. I wanted to do the theory. But unfortunately, life brought me a lot of the labs. So those memory threads are created and have created other skills and other tools and have changed and deepened my own wisdom. That I would never tell somebody that because of a loss, you're going to have a gain. That is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to tell you, to have a gain, you're going to have to work really hard. If you want to live with the loss and make it your banner and your badge, and you want to feel pity for yourself, you can do that. It's the walking wounded. Or you can decide, like I did, no, I don't want to live like that. That's a double loss. So, by writing your own personal story, and the way I've chosen to do it is by compartmentalizing. You can do it any way you want. We can anchor ourselves. Kelsey Schuler is a writing coach, and she talks about our memories may be on slippery slopes, and if we pin them down and we think about them and we write them and then we go back over them, we don't lose them. Also, our stories become more cohesive as we go along. And my pilgrimage, all I ever experienced, all I ever dreamed of, the very long hallway, my gauntlet, rich in history, no better, no worse than anyone else's. After losses and crosses, men grow humbler and wiser, Ben Franklin. Translated, to pass through these ordeals and not let them capture me. I don't want to be behind one of those doors. Butler, who did a lot of research on end of life, said that death, when we know we're dying, if we have the time, we go back and we do a life review. And that life review, it helps us to cohese all of who we were, and when we're leaving this earth, our personality is completed. Whether you believe that or not, that is not why I did this, not why I started it. I did this because I wanted to preserve those memories. I wanted to have a way to work through the pain and suffering of childhood or adulthood, and that's why I started it. I wanted to have a self that was healthy, that self I talked about last time had work to do. And I took the time to do the work, and I'm sharing with you how I did my work. And I'm sure there are many ways to do it. I have to tell you, one of the reasons I do the compartmentalization, I don't want to miss a door. I'm OCD, I'm very obsessive compulsive. I don't want to miss a door. I want to make sure that I've opened all those doors and I've worked through the ones I've wanted to. And if I've decided to close one and not open it, that's up to me. So, in wrapping this up, I've created my own handbook. I'm suggesting writing is a terrific way to begin, and I still have other self journeys that we're going to be doing. Having purpose. In my case, having an ongoing review gives me purpose of making sense out of my own life. Having a compartmentalization is one easy way for me to take one door at a time and not flood myself out. My experience and lessons I have embraced. Writing your story, creating your hallway of doors, or just writing your novel. A hallmark store for me of memories, a hallmark star of personal recall, of being able to remind myself of what that journey has been like. I want to make meaning for myself. I don't need to have someone else make meaning for it. We can go in and out, and we can change our goals at any time. We're very capable of making changes for our future, deciding on a new dream at any age. And we have to have the desire to create something. We have to take the time. So, I would like to turn it over to my group this morning and have them talk about what door, if they could choose a door that they would go into. Let's say they each made a hallway and they opened their door, one door today, and shared with us. Candy, what door would you like to open?
I think the family door.
The family door? Okay. What would that
mean? I'd like to leave some of the others closed.
Okay, you don't want to open the others?
We don't open some of the others. But the family door. And I liked your analogy of a tapestry.
We all have that individual tapestry. All of our lives are woven in front of us, and we have the opportunity to put some really good threads in.
I feel like if I open that door and there's a tapestry there.
Okay.
And there's some beautiful things about the tapestry that never change. And then there's some things I'd like to fix. I used to sew a lot, so I was a seamstress, and I couldn't stand it if my seam wasn't perfect.
Perfection.
It's perfection. And that causes me to want to have perfection in the family as well. So I become agitated if I look at that tapestry and something's not right, so I want to fix it. I don't want to go back, but you can't go back and change that tapestry. You can't
So if
rip
you
out the threads.
If you knew you were having the dinner and everyone was fully present, would it be okay if it wasn't perfect? Could you settle?
Yeah, I think in the past I couldn't have, but I think I've gotten to where there's so many imperfections that and I think that's because I have grandkids now.
Okay.
I think I demanded more perfection when I just had my children, but as they grew older, all the problems that come from adult children, they're different. And you can't fix those. You can't fix them a skinned knee or take them and get them a bone fixed, you know.
Not now.
No. and when there's grandchildren involved, and that makes it a lot more difficult.
So I'd like to leave you with Candyland.
That's a game.
And you know something, life definitely resembles a game. And the fact is, it can be just good enough. If it's too good, you take away everyone else's responsibility for what they need
Yeah.
to do. And if it's not good enough, you have no chance of feeling good yourself. But just good enough is, today, it has to be just good enough. Sometimes I have to settle for
Just
what
good
is
enough.
and not what I'd like it to be.
But just good.
But just good enough in Candyland.
Yeah.
Okay, Theo, what do you think?
Sure. One door that's come into mind for me is that I've been on a journey with going in and out of is just connection with people outside of my family, community, if you want to think of it like that. Connection to peers and colleagues at school, at work, in a religious community. I tended to keep people at arm's length. I could be really kind. I could have a lot of friendships, but tended to maybe not get as involved as would be useful. And I think I've really worked at seeing where that comes from in myself, and getting clear about the type of relationships I want and what's good for my life. Part of that has been trying to stay in touch with people, getting involved in professional things in my profession, and just put yourself out there sometimes to try to connect. I think that's something I've been working on, a door that I go in and out of.
Okay, the last time, if I recall, since I don't have my notes or the video sitting here, you were talking about biology and the differentiation of the organism. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And the cells?
Yes,
So can you relate that to
absolutely.
what you're creating?
I think the one thing that kept me from being more open and connected with people was honestly being less differentiated, worrying too much about what people think. And I think the more clear I've gotten about who I am, the more I've been able to be a part of things and be myself around other people.
You know how I can relate to that? Just now I thought of this. Do you know how hard it is for someone who's OCD to put out a video? As good as Tony does behind the camera, I think, what if somebody judges me? What if they say, well, she really doesn't know what she's talking about? Just good enough. I just have to be just good enough. I'm presenting it as myself today. My journey, my pilgrimage. If you want to attack something, you'll have to find something else to attack this video, because this is all about me. Very narcissistic about this video. All right, Guillermo, what would you like to talk about? You talked about self-esteem. That was a super duper part of the video. I loved it.
Well, I don't know if I can beat these two therapists. They're above my level. But I'm going to talk about exile. I think coming from Cuba at the age of 9, my father was an attorney, and a successful attorney as that. And we had a nice big house, we had a house on the beach, we had a house farm, and he lost it all. So we came out of Cuba, we went to Puerto Rico, we were 7 of us, and the only thing what he was allowed to take was $5 per person. So he left Cuba with $35. We went to Puerto Rico to my mother knew a person there that took us in. We were 7 because they were 7, so we were 14 in a house until we were able to accommodate ourselves and move. And my father found a job. Obviously, he couldn't be an attorney because he had to redo everything and take entire courses again, and all that information that he has gotten in Cuba, it wouldn't serve in Puerto Rico. So he finally found a couple of jobs, and we were able to move to a house. It's a 2-story house with 3 bedrooms and 1 bath for 7 people. So you can imagine
One
the fun
bath.
that we had taking a shower every day. There was only one key to the bathroom, so each boy and girl tried to steal the key from one another, so be able to close the door, but then the door could be opened with a credit card. So we didn't have any credit cards back then, but we had some kind of tool that opened the door so we kick the other person out. So that was a battle just to learn that. After that, several months after that, we received my mother's sister, her husband and 2 kids. So now we were 11 people in a house with 1 bathroom. So you can imagine that. So, but all was fun. They moved out, and then we were back to 7, and we grew up in that environment. So it was all good. My father had 2 jobs. My mother was a seamstress at that time, even though she didn't know how to sew. She learned how to sew. And my brother and my sister went to work, and my brother was little than me, one of them, and I stayed home and went to school. So, but we all grew up in an environment where we all had to work. We all had to make sure that we had enough to succeed. And my parents worked hard enough to give us opportunity to go to school and go to college and be able to move on in life the way that we chose to do. Because at the end of the day, as you get older, you find yourself with a lot of different doors that you create during your lifetime. And whether you want to look at those doors or not, it depends on what you want to do and how you want to do it. But I think sometimes it's useful to look at certain doors that you created through your experiences and sacrifices and learn from them. Because now, as you get older, by being self-sufficient and by being responsible, you are going to learn to deal with those better than you did when you were growing up. So everything in life is an experience. And the more experience you have, the more you go through life, and the more you sacrifice, the more you learn, and the more you can adapt to things that happen that you don't had an answer for, or came in surprisingly because you didn't ask for it. And we all go through that through our lifetime. Life is not a smooth road. Life has a lot of speed bumps, and we need to know how to navigate those speed bumps. And those speed bumps are the ones that give us experience to make decisions that will better ourselves.
Wonderful. One question. I only have one question.
You are not entitled to ask any questions.
I'm going to take a shot if that's okay with everyone.
Yes.
Who believed in you?
Well, actually, I didn't have too many people that believed in me at the time because I was the what they call the black duck in the family. I had a hard time going to school. When I went to college, I remember going to my aunt's house, and my aunt was married to a very successful AT&T gentleman that was a lot older than she was, and they looked at me, and I didn't know any English back then, and they looked at me and says, "This guy, he ain't gonna make it." So the only thing that I had is my dad, and my mom was always behind me, especially my dad. My dad, because I played basketball and he loved basketball, and he played basketball for the Olympic team in Cuba when he was younger. He followed me through my basketball career in high school and college and in semi-pro. So he was able to relate to me well, and he was always backing me up 100%.
And that's a big thing.
That's a big thing. I think the help that your parents give you, the push that they give you, the ability to know that they're there for you makes a big difference in somebody's life.
I always remember the little teensy tale of the sparrow that falls to earth in the barnyard, and the horse comes along and does doo-doo all over it and covers it up. And the fox comes along and it unburies it and he eats it. And the moral of the story is those sometimes that cover you up are your friend, and those that uncover you and try to act like your friend are your enemy. You need to know who's supportive, where to go for that support, who to share things with. Am I correct?
Yes.
And even now, how do you see yourself now? How do you see yourself?
Well, I think that I'm thankful for the experiences that I got, because those experiences taught me what I know today and what I can do today. And I think, like I was talking to you guys before, I think one of the things I'm glad to have is common sense. To me, common sense is being a vital tool for me to move forward in my life.
Early on, I remembered Common Sense that had a funeral and died, and there was a poem about common sense. I forget who wrote that poem, but The Funeral of Common Sense. And it's a wonderful little story about how common sense has disappeared from the culture. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you very much for helping me and contributing to the video. See you next time.
Take care.
Thank you.